The Chancellor has delivered his spring statement. His challenge was laid bare this morning as prices rose by 6.2% in the 12 months prior to February, the fastest for 30 years, with a forecast that they'll go above 7%. And Rishi Sunak began by saying the impact of the war in Ukraine is yet to be truly felt in the UK economy. But he did announce something of a tax cut bonanza, a 5p cut in fuel duty to help motorists struggling with high petrol costs, a £3,000 increase in the level at which employees pay national insurance, meaning that only those earning more than £12,500 a year will pay national insurance. He's keeping the planned national insurance rise in place for those that pay it, which will increase next month from 12% to 13.25%. And the rabbit at the end was a 1p cut in the basic rate of income tax by the end of this parliament. So that's a drop from 20% to 19% by 2024 at the latest. Charlotte, if I could start with you. I suppose that was the big surprise, was it? That was the rabbit, big ears.
That was a big rabbit with very big ears, and it allowed Conservative MPs to return to their core ideology, of course, cutting taxes. They'll be really pleased with that. What might provide more of a challenge for Rishi Sunak is that other fundamental tenet of conservatism, being the party of workers, working people, using the tax system to encourage work. Well, of course, people in work pay national insurance. That is going up. People who earn outside of work, they also pay income tax. Everyone who has an income of any form, be that from a pension, from rent, they pay income tax. So it's a bit of a odd move if you want to encourage work, having that discrepancy there. So that will be the challenge for Tory MPs. But they were very cheery after that. You heard the noises they were making. They were very happy to see Rishi Sunak putting that pledge inside to actually cut income tax for the first time in 16 years.
Carsten, thank you very much for joining us. Rachel Reeves did seem very keen to make clear that this was not a statement for working people. How do you think that played out in terms of what Rishi Sunak announced?
Yeah, I agree. The cheers in Parliament will probably soon ebb because as incomes will be hit, because sadly what Rishi Sunak has announced did not protect the incomes of most people, and especially not those of low and middle earners. Just to illustrate that, if you're a low earner, you might, even with all benefits increases that Sunak has announced in the past, you'll see a £400 decline in your real income this year. And for example, the fuel duty cut just gives you £25 for the year. So it's a drop in the ocean. And he has not announced any additional support for low earners, but also middle income earners will still be £300 or so worse off than they were last year. So sadly, people will really struggle as this inflation crisis hits.
Carsten, what were you most pleased by or most surprised by?
So I was pleased that Rishi Sunak announced support for energy improvement of homes, because we all know to stop Russian aggression, we need to wean ourselves off the gas from Russia and fossil fuels from Russia. And so the best way to do it is to insulate our homes. So that was great. He cut the VAT on home improvement. But what I was surprised by at the same time was that he didn't actually help most people to make those home improvements because a lot of people on middle and low incomes just can't afford the upfront costs of insulating your home or getting a heat pump. So having grants for people, about 7.5K we estimate would be the right amount. That would really turn the dial. That would really get our energy security moving in the right direction. And sadly, we still haven't heard anything on this.
Charlotte, politically, who was that budget for?
That budget politically was for Tory voters, to be honest. That very much seemed to be targeting the type of people who voted for Boris Johnson last time and who, of course, he will need to hang on to next time. So you had Rishi Sunak talking up pensions there. You had those tax cuts for homeowners, for example. That's very much within the core demographics of people who were voting Conservative. It's also a budget for Conservative MPs. Perhaps, if we're cynical about it, Conservative MPs who might want to hold on to their seats come that next election. You have that commitment there to a national income tax lowering just before the election, a convenient timing for that. And it will also give Tory MPs something to look forward to. A lot of them very uncomfortable with such a high tax burden. Well, they've been promised jam tomorrow, as Rachel Reeves put it.
And do you think that he handed, in a way, an opportunity for Rachel Reeves to come in and very much take the position of the working man and woman?
I think Rachel Reeves' positioning was very interesting there. It was sort of like listening to a Blairite chancellor, sort of maybe even like listening to a Tory chancellor talking about how the government has put taxes too high, talking about the need for more innovation within the economy, talking about being on the side of work and of working people. That sort of rhetoric is very much something you can imagine Rishi Sunak using if, for example, he were in opposition at the moment. And I think that's what we're going to see more and more of from Labour. You did have a little bit of a gesture towards the left, though, from Rachel Reeves. She was wanting a windfall tax on oil and gas companies. She was also talking about why Rishi Sunak hadn't put some kind of tax increase on the highest paid. So you do have that tightrope being walked there by Reeves, appealing to the left of her party, yes, but also trying to put a tax on the Conservative lawn.
It's interesting, Carsten, isn't it, the way he juggled the national insurance issue, continuing to take on the one hand the levy that's been quite unpopular, but nevertheless hiring the rate at which you then pay it. Do you think that was clever?
It's a bit schizophrenic, isn't it? You first raise the national insurance contribution, and then you erase 70% of that increase by lowering the threshold. So, from a policy perspective, I don't think it makes that much sense, and it's also not that well targeted or well justified. A much better way of, obviously he did this because of the cost of living crisis and he wanted to get money into the pockets of middle and low earners. But what he's done with this is actually disproportionately benefited people on high incomes because they pay the most national insurance contribution. So I'm surprised that he hasn't gone for another tool that would have actually helped those people that clearly are the most exposed to this crisis, namely those on low and middle incomes. And there would have been various ways to do that through, the benefit system. Benefits are not keeping up with the rise in inflation. They rise by 3%, inflation's going up by 8%. But he could also have used his own tool that he developed last year, the council tax rebate, that would have also been better targeted. So I'm really a bit puzzled why he would have gone for the national insurance contribution. I presume it was just politics, not economics.
But he has doubled the money going to local governments, hasn't he?
Yes, but this pot is incredibly small. It's a drop in the ocean. And also, a lot of people don't qualify for it. You only qualify for it if you don't get the council tax rebate, which excludes, again, a lot of people in low and middle incomes, which really don't have seen barely any support announced today. And I find it quite interesting, this intense situation with the war in Ukraine is really making us question, like, what are our values? What is it worth for us to protect our freedoms? And I think this budget, in a way, is an example where we can ask ourselves, what are we willing to pay to protect the incomes of those on low incomes, those who are less fortunate? And Rishi Sunak today seems to have spoken that he doesn't want to protect those incomes, sadly.
Well